Here goes, and welcome to the 96th episode of Throwback Hoops. Woody V's in the house, and as always, please follow the show on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We appreciate everyone's support as we approach 100 episodes, and as always, I'm joined by my main man, Robbie Clayton. Wagwan, bro.
What's up, Woods? Good to be back for another week, mate. See, we're wearing some matching Pacers jerseys today, so looking forward to kick it.
Yeah, and we have two very special guests on the show today. These guys were just talking Aussie Hoops and NBL Fantasy over a can or three, and now they are proud hosts of the official Supercoach podcast of the NBL. They've built a cult following over the years and should be extremely proud of their achievements. One of them even has a hidden talent as an R&B crooner. We are joined by two of the three basketball blokes today, Brendan Boyd and Ben Russell. You would know them affectionately as Benny and Boydie, and it's a big Throwback Hoops welcome from Robbie and I to you, my brothers.
Thanks very much, fellas.
How are we going?
I must admit that
long talked about.
Yeah, look, the fact that it's the can or three is no longer in the intro song. I do enjoy writing that intro song every year, but we must concentrate, as Boydie's just doing, on our refreshments as we're podcasting. So that still happens, but yeah, to be trying to make Supercoach history is what we're about now. Thanks very much for having us.
I know that, guys, but I just wanted to show you that I've been listening for a while, man.
Oh yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So, and
first time, long time.
Boydie, maybe I'll throw over to you, man. When I said one of them has a hidden talent as an R&B crooner, what am I talking about, man? What am I talking about?
Every now... Well, I do sing all the intro songs, as you probably would have heard, and all our Banksy's Captain song and everything like that. So, yes, I have been... In a past life, maybe I was did sing in a couple of bands every now and then. So I think in one escapade with you, Woody, up in Sydney earlier in the year, I did maybe have a couple of shandies and decided to break out in some Boys to Men, I think it was.
Yeah. So. Put on a show. Ever since that happened, Woody, the expectation for our intro song lyrics has gone right up there, man, ever since. So,
the only problem is normally once I start, you can't shut me up. So I think you might have heard all three verses of that song that night. So apologies for that.
No, it was terrific, and catching up with you guys in Sydney was great, and building that bond. It just shows our community just sticks together and has each other's back. So it's been really great to know you guys over the last little period. So really appreciate you guys coming on the show today. Benny, as you know, we'll start with you, Benny, and I'll come to you, Boydie. If you come on Throwback Hoops, we're all about that throwback. What nice jersey do you have? We're gonna crack open a classic pack later on in the show. So you got to come on the show and wear a jersey. So absolutely. Benny, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're rocking today and what it means to you? Yeah.
Well, I noticed robbing this one about a year ago, so hopefully 12 months. That's a long enough break in between jerseys. But I'm in the laMelo, the number one there. The laMelo, I've got the City edition as well. I call this one the Stretch edition, just because it doesn't fit me, because it was from the pre-COVID days. And bit of story about this one that kind of reminds me of road tripping with my co-host Boydie here in our very short-lived Phoenix Blokes podcast, and I'll take this opportunity to the one person that actually reached out to us when we stopped that, Matty Benici. If you're out there and watching, I appreciate you forever. But obviously, LaMelo Ball, he's a fantasy basketball cult hero that back-to-back triple-doubles. That was in fantasy folklore now. And of course, it's all about the three Bs, the big baller brand, but turned out to be Benny, Banksy and Boydie, the basketball blokes in the end. So, all about LaMelo. And, of course, being from Wollongong, I hope to talk about that trip a little bit later on as well.
Yeah, sure. Looking forward to it, Benny. And you got a Rockets hat on there, so, tell us a little bit about that and your fandom for the Houston Rockets. I think we can get into it a bit later, but, let's unpack that a bit.
Probably one of the worst decisions I think I've ever made. Look, just very briefly, it used to be really hard to follow an NBA team. Wasn't as easy as it was now. I followed Shaq, and that turned into T-Mac for Orlando. And then just followed McGrady over to Houston and follow all the Houston sporting teams now, which has been very unsuccessful. Thankfully, I've got my man Boydie here, though, and his teams that are probably worse than mine collectively. So thank you for that.
Well, it's a good segue then, Benny. Boydie, why don't we go over to you, man? What you got on there?
Nice. Well, after his game last week, I had to go with Big Willie Magnay's top, obviously. 20 points, 13 rebounds in his kind of first couple of games back, I guess. So a 50 Supercoach point game last weekend, if you don't mind, as well. So I had to wear my Big Willie jersey. Sometimes it's good to have a Big Willie on, you know.
Okay. Two-way Magnay and 4 blocks as well in 16 minutes. I want to talk about that a bit later, so we'll unpack that later on in the show, Boydie, for sure.
That's it. I wore it because I knew we'd talk about it later, so that's good.
Word. All right, Robbie, man, my brother. I know you paid homage to the boys today and their 2 teams, so why don't you take the audience a little bit through what you got for us today, man? Yeah.
I thought it would only be fair to sort of rock jerseys in honour of the boys today. So a couple of old school ones. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about the one hanging behind me. You can probably just see it there, but it's a 90s Robert Horry champion Rockets jersey. So yeah, I was a big fan of Mr. Horry back in the day. I won't do my full normal spiel I do was where I carry on for 5 minutes, but look, a little bit about Robert Horry. So he's absolutely one of the most winning players of all time. He's got 7 rings, which is only behind a handful of those Celtics legends back in the 60s there. So obviously got one more than Pippen and Jordan. He was actually also the first player, so the boys will like this in terms of fantasy aspect there. So first player to ever accumulate 100 plus steals, blocks and threes in one season. So that was pretty good that he could sort of, fill up the box score doing those things there. And honestly, despite not a lot of personal accolades, he's someone that has been in that Hall of Fame discussion since he retired, just given his 7 championships. So currently 53, he coaches his son's AAU team in LA. So that's a little bit on Horry there. I'll quickly stand up and show you the one.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember Robert Horry about. I can't even remember the ad or whatever it is. You know how like ESPN plays ads like non-stop, whatever sport you're watching really. But there was like a clip, and it was from one of the finals games. I think he hit the game winner, and it was like Robert Horry. It's like classic.
Well, certainly would have got a game winner. He did lots of those, didn't he? I remember a dunk he did as well. He used to be on NBA Action where he dunked it and the ball went up 10 feet high up in the air, and while he was hanging on the ring, and when it came down, he dunked it in and they waved it off. But I think it still made the top 10 plays. But look, I'll stand up and show you the Pacers one I'm rocking. So it's a bad boy of the Pacers and a bit of an old school one as well.
And for all our audio listeners who can't see, Robbie is rocking the Ron Artest, a.k.a. Meta World Peace jersey, man.
It's a lovely jersey, this one, isn't it?
Both of us, didn't you?
That's it, I really did.
Obviously, your punching bag's out of camera view as well? Or?
Well, there's some interesting stories we could tell about him, but I think one thing for me, obviously he gets... Probably the Malice in the Palace and all those things will, people will always remember that about him. But I love the career that he carved out there. Those early days when he actually was named Ron Artest, back when he was with the Bulls and then obviously the Pacers there. First of all, this jersey, Woods, I love those old Nike Rewind jerseys they were called. So probably my favourite brand of jerseys. This one was huge for me when I got it, and eaten a few pies over the years, and it actually fits really well now, which is good. So, and look, just a little bit on Ron Artest. So, look, he's got a pretty good resume, to be honest. So he won a ring, of course, in 2010. He's also a one-time All-Star, one-time Defensive Player of the Year, and also a one-time All-NBA player. So pretty good to have that on his resume there. Still only 44 years of age. Feels like he's should be a bit older than that. He's actually involved in a number of businesses. From all the reports, he seems to be in a good place these days. So maybe I'll throw it to you guys what your thoughts were on Mr. Artest.
Boydie.
I remember him because in the end he was almost like a defensive specialist, but I remember in the early days he actually had a fairly decent offensive game as well. I think especially at the Pacers he used to score pretty well back in the day, and then it was kind of after all the Malice in the Palace and all that junk, he sort of kind of almost got typecast as that defensive stopper. He was always good defensively, but I remember he had a bit more of an offensive game prior to that.
For me, it's just good to see, like you say, that he's actually doing well, because it was a great concern that he was not quite potentially all there at all times. Yeah. Maybe that white line fever when he's on the court as well. So
he was the second coming of Dennis Rodman, wasn't he? Really, kind of, almost.
He's definitely an enforcer. But yeah, I enjoyed his brief time at the Rockets as well. So.
I actually re-watched a little bit of the Malice at the Palace today just to set the mood there. Firstly, I couldn't believe how grainy the footage looked. Obviously, before, the HD days, it looked so bad. I showed my daughter. She's like, that looks so old. And I remember actually watching that, watching it live on ESPN. It was a Saturday. And I remember just watching that and my phone just blowing up. Everyone's like, are you watching this? But, yeah, it's something that I think we'll always remember when it comes to Ron Artest. But, yeah, still had a pretty solid career for sure. What about yourself, Woods? What are you rocking a nice old school one as well?
Right.
Yeah?
I am.
You're still looking good with those red headphones as well. I'm liking those. Yeah.
Thanks, man. I got the red hat as well. I got them for my birthday, boys. 40th birthday present. So, yeah. These boys have seen me with the old ones, right? Yeah? So.
That's it. Absolutely. That's how we first met you.
So, Woods is standing up rocking the very famous Pacers number 31, Reggie Miller. So it's actually the same sort of era jersey, isn't it, Woods? Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Mine's the Artest Hardwood Classic, which I really liked, right? Yeah. And, I've got a 4 or 5 Pacers jerseys, but I thought, with Boydie coming on the show, why don't I wear, the great man himself? So I'll just go through a few of his accolades, and Boydie, I'll just throw over to you, and you can give us your thoughts and your memories of Reggie. So he was the 11th overall pick in the first round of the 1987 NBA draft, 5-time NBA All-Star, 3-time All-NBA third-teamer. He made the NBA 75th anniversary team. He was in the 50-40-90 club in 1994. USA Male Athlete of the Year in 2002. All-FIBA World Cup first team in 1994. His number 31 is retired by the Indiana Pacers. His number 31 is also retired by the UCLA Bruins. I guess the Nick Killer, that's what I remember a lot about him. He was known for taking those big shots and making those big shots in clutch moments. So maybe being a Pacers lifer, Boydie, I'll throw over to you and ask you what he means to you and the kind of impact that he had on Indiana basketball.
Yeah, well, the number 31 might be retired at the Pacers, but it's not retired Tuesday night men's basketball at Frankston, because I still wear number 31 to this day due to Reggie. So he was kind of that got me really into basketball, I guess, back in the day. So if you guys remember, I'm nearly 40 as well, Woody, so I'm not far behind you, mate. And I remember back in the day, this is the 90s, and we used to get games I can't remember if they were even if they were full games. I don't think they were. I think they were like highlights almost, nights, like Friday nights, maybe Thursday nights as well, up really late. So I used to record them on the VCR back in the day, and these kids nowadays wouldn't even understand the pain that is VCR and rewinding and fast-forwarding and rah-rah.
Getting copied over, let alone.
And I must have, the first couple of teams I watched were the Warriors and Orlando as well, because of Shaq, and Warriors had Tim Hardaway Sr. back in those days. And then, I don't know, I saw a Reggie game, and I don't even know if it was the famous 8 seconds game or what, but that was it. Reggie was my man, and I was a Pacers man from that day, I guess, forward, and have been since that. So it'd be the 90s. I mean, I saw a game over there when I was 14, so that's how many years is that? 26 years ago, something like that, nearly. Yeah. So it's been a long time. So obviously haven't had that much success, as Benny alluded to in his intro to his Houston sporting teams. The Pacers generally aren't that flash. Not going too badly to start off the year, but
let's not get into what happened today, man. Being Atlanta Hawks fans, man.
But yeah, they've always been, obviously they made that one final series, but didn't have the result we wanted. But
did he live up to his sister, fellas? That's what I want to know.
I was just about to say, man, high pedigree in that family, right?
I know that's tough.
The two Millers.
So both your jerseys are immortalised by great documentaries now as well. So correct, if anyone wants to check it out, by all means.
Yeah, I think it still said. I can't even remember in the book. I think Cheryl used to beat him constantly, all the time. So
totally.
So you can probably say that she's the better player, I would say.
And obviously forged a really good career in the media since. So, he's a very well-respected pundit since. So, good to see some of these legends stay involved in the game in some capacity, whether it be in coaching or working the media. So, really nice to see that he's still...
I'm kind of glad, a year or two, a couple of years after he retired, I remember there was some calls for him to join one of the finals teams, because in those days there was big 3 teams coming on board. And I can't even remember. I think it might have even been the Celtics. The Celtics wanted to nab him when they had Garnett and Paul Pierce, for another run at the finals, and I'm kind of glad that Reggie didn't. I kind of really liked that about him, that he was a one-team player, and even though he didn't get the success that all those years that he stuck through. And, even though he was an LA kid, he was used to being in a big city, and he went to, that you've obviously seen the ESPN documentary. It talks about, like, Indiana was like, predominantly country town almost, really. Well, it's a state, sorry. Indianapolis is the city, but this big town kid goes into country in the middle of nowhere sort of thing. So it's it was a good story, I think, all around. And
the other thing I can confirm, fellas, is that the other thing that Boydie definitely takes after Reggie is the yapping. Just the yapping is constant. So definitely a role model for Boydie.
So he does the number 31 justice, which is terrific.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate you making the effort today. And to all our listeners, we'll put these jerseys up on X, Instagram later on, so you can check them out. So let's get into some Q&A with the boys. What do you think, Robbie?
Sounds good. Let's kick it.
All right, guys. You ready to chop it up?
Sounds good, man.
All right. So what I want to ask you guys, like we ask all our guests, is when did you fall in love with the game of basketball? And I was going to ask you, are there any players or teams you had an affinity with growing up? But I mean, I think we've already covered that. But when did you first fall in love with the game of basketball? That's a question to both of you.
For me, it was, like I said, it was hard to follow. It would have been NBA before NBL, if I'm being honest. NBL, I never actually attended a game. I probably first fell in love with the game of basketball playing at lunchtime at high school. To be honest, that was it. And me and Boydie were part of a very ordinary midweek C grade team where he helped us to a championship by injuring one of our players' ankle, and we got a great fill-in player, and we got all the way to the championship. But look, the NBL focus is, you might appreciate this, Woody, Banksy, our other co-host, we work together, and part of our every payday, every second Thursday or whatever it was at the time, we'd go buy some cognac, some Hennessy, and we'd sample some Hennessy and watch, taking some NBL action. That was the entertainment on the Thursday nights, whatever it was at the time. So that's kind of my relationship with it. But I know Boydie has definitely played at a better level than us, and I think he's been blocked by David Anderson down at the FDBA. I think that was his claim to fame in our very first podcast.
Yeah. So I've been playing basketball since I was, I don't know, grade 4 or something along those lines. So 30 years, and always, most of the time at Frankston, most years since then, I guess. And I fell in, I guess, Shaq was probably the big thing that got in, like, that early 90s, when he drafted, it became kind of world news for a little while there, and obviously MJ was around in those days and everything as well, but it sort of had that real boom in the early 90s, if I remember rightly, and that's what I was saying about I was recording the highlight show, and they used to have the top 10 countdown or the whatever it was, NBA action every week or whatever, all that sort of stuff. We did get those shows once upon a time, and that's where it kind of went from there, I guess. And that's why I got into the Pacers, and then kind of got into NBA fantasy as well. I remember year 11 or 12, I was getting up in the morning and setting my fantasy team every morning on the old dial-up internet. The kids nowadays wouldn't understand the pain that is connecting a bloody, I don't know, it must have been about a 25-foot long phone cord. I don't know, people won't even know what that is, some of the people listening and watching today probably, but
hey, this is throwbacks, man.
That's it, plugging it back into ripping the phone out and plugging my damn computer modem thing and listening to those sounds and all that crap, to set aside before I went off to school every day. So that was probably fantasy. And NBL wise, I remember in the 90s, like when it got big for a while, that Southeast Melbourne Magic, Melbourne Tigers rivalry, and it was pretty big. I was pretty young then, so I don't remember going to any games, but I did. I used to, I think we had them on TV every now and then, or at least highlight shows and that sort of stuff. So I did watch a little bit of that. And then I think same as Benny, kind of got into it. I think we used to do Wednesdays. I think they used to, for some in the early 2010s, they started doing Wednesday night games for some reason. We just started playing one of the fantasy games there and having dinner at Banksy's house and whatever and watching the games. So it's kind of just taken off from there, I guess.
Thanks, boys, and shout out to Banksy, man. We wish he could be here with us, but I know you're here in spirit, brother.
Yeah, I know. Benny mentioned him in the famous grand final that we won care of. Maybe my questionable doctor antics. I can't speak too much about that. ESPN are thinking about doing a 30 for 30 on that one, so we're just in contract negotiations at the moment.
I have to ask you, fellas, is that the first dial-up internet impersonation you've ever had on the Throwbacks?
It might be. It wasn't bad though. Yeah.
Okay. See, this is why we've got Boydie on the pod for sure.
Nice. Well, fellas, I wanted to ask as well. So, Woody and myself have been friends for 20 plus years now. Certainly, when we hear you guys on the Basketball Blokes podcast, it's very obvious to see that you guys have got a very tight bond and that the three of you are great friends. Maybe talk to us a little bit about how that friendship between the three of you started, and talk to us a little bit about that.
I was the ring-in, Boydie. So, do you want to start off, mate?
Yeah, so Banksy and I have known each other since year 8 or year 9, I think it was, and we kind of just hit it off straight away. I think I was pinching lifts home with his mum in the car, from school. I think that's how it started, and just weaseled in, getting free lifts halfway home, and that was pretty much it. And we've been best buds ever since then, I guess. So we're both each other's sort of best man and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
I first met both of these blokes. They used to work together as well at a discount rejects shop kind of store. That was my first job when I was 16, and I actually had the great Boydie for my first few shifts showing me how things are done, and he was very professional, I have to say. Probably took until about the third shift where he showed me how to get the box cutter and just go just deep enough on the box so you just open up the packet of chips or whatever it is, so you can go write it off and then put it in the tea room. So he's always very professional. But worked with them, met them when I was 16. Went to another job with Banksy, and then ended up in another job as sitting a couple of desks across from Boydie again, some 5 years later or however it worked out. But just school and work, fellas.
That's terrific, and the fact that you guys have stuck together over all the years and doing this together with the Basketball Blokes Podcast it's awesome to see, right? So congratulations. I got to say, your subject matter is very niche, and because of that, your podcast focusing on NBL fantasy, it's been a resounding success. You have a specific target audience who've all come on board, and look, I'm part of your Discord chat, and you've created a great following and a community of listeners. How did the idea come about to launch the show, guys?
Thanks very much for your support, Woody. Look, the idea for the show, and it is niche, and I don't think I wanted it to be as niche when I was going for my, was it the walk of enlightenment?
Walk of enlightenment.
That's I think is what he's called it. Just walking the dog. And this has been something that we've been talking about. I think it's kind of a bit, you get fed up at work, you want to do something else, creative outlet. And I think initially I wanted to do writing. I really enjoy writing about basketball, writing about sport in general. So come up with the name. We'll call the Basketball Blokes. Within the space of probably an hour on the group chat, we had the group chat renamed to the Basketball Blokes, and we stuck with it. We got all the socials, got our Gmail account, and then what was it about? I don't know. A week later, that weekend, we were all three of us sitting around a laptop, literally, because this is 6 years ago, should I say, for some context, and it's not as easy as the technology wasn't there to do this kind of stuff, and we're sitting around a laptop just talking using the actual microphone off the laptop and uploading to SoundCloud, and I don't even know if SoundCloud exists anymore, but certainly expanded from then, and Boydie, I don't know how we survived, given that we were praising Dan Trist as a relevant fantasy option at the time, talking about how he's going to come in and play a big role with Ty Wesley out, and that was our first ever podcast. And somehow we've managed to survive all those years, and it is, like you say, the support that we get. But you mentioned the success that look, being niche certainly does help, but the success is in the community. It's good to have a podcast that sustains itself, but it's also on the fun things we get to do, my little Wollongong top here, which is reflective of our road trip, Boydie. Do you want to talk, because I think that is universally the best thing that we've got to experience. Do you want to talk about the road trip a little bit?
Yeah, I can talk about the road trip as well. So earlier this year, Banksy as well. Benny and I went up a couple of days early and got to take in a Hawks game up in the Gong. We had some reasonably good seats, maybe we should say, and care of a very good contact of ours, Julian O'Brien. So
shout out to J.O.
He was able to sort us out, so which was cool.
Very cool.
And we had a bit of a shout. Adam Ford, because they played Cairns. He'd actually seen our social posts during the day where I was wearing a Cairns Taipans jersey. So as soon as you guys talk about jerseys, I thought I'd better bring up that little tidbit, because I wore my Cairns jersey on the way up in the car, and we did a couple of updates on the Instagrams or something. I don't know. Benny's all over this stuff. I just go with the flow. And so Adam Ford told me to come over and have a chat as well before the game. So I went and had a chat to 40, which is pretty cool, because Benny and I both probably kind of got a bit man crushes on 40. We think he's a bit of a good dude. So that was cool to have a chat to him as well. So you were talking about the niche part of it. We didn't intend to be so niche. We started off as our little slogan on our logo or whatever is, and at the start, all things Aussie hoops and NBL fantasy. So at the time, I think the year we started, there was some Boomers games coming up, which might have been World Cup or Olympic qualifiers, something along those lines. So we look, at the start, we tried to talk about everything, even Aussies in the NBA. We tried to talk about, obviously the numbers of those has ballooned in those 6 years since we were doing it. I think back in those days, it might have only been Paddy and maybe Banksy, maybe? And Joe. We started off trying to be sort of everything, but we realised we kind of had that niche, and the fantasy aspect, we did get some listeners kind of straight away out of nowhere, because we didn't really have listeners. We just kind of put it out there, and I think we put it on socials, and somehow people got hold of it, and I mean, it's kind of one of those rags to riches without the riches, unfortunately.
We shouted out Liam Santamaria one podcast, because he actually won the fantasy competition the first time we did it, and then we get hit up on social media going, "Oh, thanks for the shout out, boys." I'm like, Liam's listening. We've had him on for interviews every year.
We're famous.
But, that was cool for us. But look, I don't think we're ever going to get invited back to the Gong again, though, because that was the first game that Cairns defeated the Hawks in about 10 attempts, and so we cursed them. But then we got to go to Sydney, which is where I wanted to get to with the story, which was a really cool thing. We get to the locker room, and in slightly older headphones, I see my man Woody out the back just rocking out. I'm not too sure what the beverage was at the time, but he went out the back, and I'm like, went and introduced myself, and little did I know that he just social. I'll come over and join you. So we had a couple of guys there that are regular listeners, and it was a great night. And I have to say this now, like, Woody told us that Rob is an encyclopedia, and having met Woody is an encyclopedia. So as far as picking your niche, your guys' product knowledge is insane. So congrats to you guys as well on picking your niche and the success of the Throwbacks pod.
I really appreciate it, guys, and it was a pleasure to meet you guys and build that bond, as I said earlier in the show. So I'm looking forward to having you in Sydney again, and when I'm in Melbourne next, we definitely got to arrange a time to have a round two, right, in your neck of the woods, right? Yeah.
I'll make sure I'll book out the next day as well.
Yeah, definitely. They need to.
You have to do that when you're with Woods, for sure.
It was a long drive home from Sydney to Melbourne, I can assure you.
Okay, so speaking about that meeting in Sydney, we did have a good chat back then about how the NBL was starting to pay attention to you guys. You even mentioned there was a Zoom call where Larry Kesselman popped his head in a few years ago, but nothing actually fully eventuated from it. If we fast forward a few years, you're now the official Supercoach podcast of the NBL. You mentioned earlier, Benny, that writing was something you had a big passion about. Now you've got to, fulfill that ambition to start writing. Tell us a little bit about that progression and how that eventuated, and what responsibilities that entails for you guys week to week.
I might jump in, Benny, if that's okay. Because I guess, and Ben sort of alluded to it a little bit with the Liam Santa Maria thing.
Yep.
We kind of got, through contact, through like tweets and that sort of stuff, adding people and chatting to people and that sort of stuff. People like Tom Hirsch, even Nathan Strempel, so well-known guys. We just kind of got friendly, I guess, with them. And that it kind of went from there. So then the NBL kind of got involved because those guys were obviously, or still are, very involved with the NBL. That's how they kind of found out, I think, about us and what we were doing, and et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah, we've been in part of the process for things over the last couple of years, and I think that's where Supercoach got hold of our details as well, because obviously the plan was this year for NBL was not going to do their own fantasy. They were going to have Supercoach, and only Supercoach. So I think that's where they kind of got us involved from there, and then it's kind of snowballed, I guess.
Yeah, the meeting you mentioned with Larry, I think we kind of became the public face for NBL fantasy, or the public contact anyway.
In the community.
Yeah, so if there was any issues with it, and you can imagine during the COVID years and all sorts of stuff like that, there was plenty of issues that popped up with it, and we would be the contact, and the NBL marketing team was great. And I always felt, I don't know if you agree, Boydie, but the marketing team guys saw the value in having a fantasy game and what it can add to the competition, but I just don't think that the level of investment was there at the time to be able to do what they wanted to do. So that was cool getting on that was through the marketing guys that we got to chat with Larry, but I think it just shows. Well, I think we've had people support us. Like, they could have dropped us, really. Like, they're starting this new Supercoach platform, and they could have just gone and done it themselves. Like, they've got no obligations to us whatsoever, and yet there's been a couple of people, I think, vouch for us along the way. And not only do we get to be the official podcast, which is something like, if you start, that was what the unbelievable dream was. Like, it just wouldn't. Yes. Seemed quite unrealistic, but to actually be part of building the platform and working with those guys and creating something from scratch, and now doing the weekly articles, and we all contribute to that. We just said yes to everything, didn't we, Boydie? So it's one of those things that it is, we just wanted to take the opportunity, and we are grateful for it. And look, it is down to the people that have supported us along the way that we have that chance. And it just gives us an excuse to catch up every single week. And talk especially, fantasy. Talk fantasy, just talk everything though, to be honest, let's be honest. So it's been a great thing that we've been able to do. And
that's great, guys. Robbie, I know you got a question about the new Supercoach, but before we go into that, what I want to outline here is us guys just doing our podcast. It's opened up doors for us to see where you guys have gone. My co-host Robbie has been offered the job as NBL 1 commentator on the back of the work he's done here on the podcast.
Congrats.
So being able to do things like this and opening up doors for us, it's been fantastic. Just guys who just wanted to do something for fun, and then it taking off. It's really heartwarming to see what you guys have achieved. So once again, big congratulations, and wish you nothing but success going forward.
Right back at you.
Well said, Woods. And yeah, we wanted to ask you boys as well. You mentioned obviously the change in platform there. So Woody and I played the old NBL fantasy for years. I dominated him every year, of course.
Yeah,
Woods.
Come on, man. Yeah.
So we wanted to ask, obviously, with the change to Supercoach this year, what do you guys feel are the pros and cons of the new platform there, if any?
You want to go, Boyd?
Look, we're contractually obligated to only speak positively
perfect, right?
about the NBL Supercoach game.
No, there were some things that we didn't get across the line, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you care to elaborate, Boyd, in your thoughts on those, mate? So that way you get in trouble. All right, look, I'll go. He's doing a lot better than me this year, so he's probably very, very happy with the game and how it's going. But for me, like, there was like a 6-man position that dropped off. That was something we fought really hard for. But the biggest change, really, I think, was the scoring system as a whole. Now, you look in the old fantasy format, if you played it, used to favour centres and people that could get rebound doubles. That was the name of the game.
100%.
And now we've got a lot more guards, if you look just purely on average, that are up the top of the averages. That's, I guess, a broad level picture. But if you look a little bit deeper, the top 5 points per minute players are all centre eligible. So you've got JLA, Big Sauce, well, Will Magnay, it's probably a little asterisk on there, but still, and both Bolden and Geordie Hunter are the top 5 in Supercoach points per minute. So it's just that with the way the game is played now, that the big men are getting, there's a lot of small ball going around, you know. So I personally think it's a fair balance. It's struck a pretty good balance, and hopefully we've been giving people decent advice. And Boydie's going very well, mate. So do you want to? Yep. What's your tactics spin?
So, well, we were part of the process about, like, we were almost like a cross check to make sure that the scoring was okay. And then so we kind of pushed back on a couple of things. I think we got some changes across the line.
Yeah, definitely.
Care of, and Benny's a bit humble here, but Benny did a lot of analysis work on the scores using our game logs that we keep, etc., for previous seasons to see what the impact on the new scoring would be. And yes, it took the focus away from those guys that would maybe just inch double-doubles. I don't know if you guys were playing, you know, you would have thought about that, thinking back, you know, that MVP year in fantasy where he was only getting like 10 points and 10 rebounds, but he was like the top, or one of the top scorers in fantasy because of that. Dane Pano, I'm talking about. Even the Bogut days, you know, because he would double in about 3 minutes of court time, etc.
And it's nice to see Chris Goulding have a 50
for guys
after last game, you know, like.
Well, that's what this that's it. And even Cotton was probably, you know, arguably the best player in our league over the last 5 years, 6 years, whatever. He was probably disadvantaged with the old NBL fantasy scoring, I would say, to a T, because of losing a point for every 2 field goals missed. Not so much for Cotton, but I mean, free throws missed was a negative as well. But so it kind of disadvantaged him a little bit.
Stressful for us.
That's it.
Oh,
so,
more stressful for me, guys.
Yeah, see, you don't have that. And I think the goal with the Supercoach as well is they wanted to get more people involved, and they wanted to get people from their NRL and AFL and BBL database, for lack of a better word. You know, those players that might not have played NBL fantasy because it's not on the Supercoach game, but they wanted them to play Supercoach in NBL. So we're trying to make it a little bit simpler. You know, because people new to the game, let's say, won't know that Xavier Cooks was a fairly average free throw shooter, right? So sometimes you wouldn't get him because of that or what have you. So I think overall, I think it's been great. I think the change has been good. It's rejuvenated it a little bit. Yes, the old faithful might be a bit upset that it's probably not quite as technical as previous fantasy versions, I guess, but I mean, this is the first year. I think they might make amendments. You know, so
I feel like it's ironed out. You know, a few gripes that Woody and I had about it over the years was it definitely favoured big guys. There was no doubt about that. I felt like you had to get the calculator out sometimes just to watch the game, and like you said, you know, losing points for field goals. One thing that used to bug me all the time was that Bryce Cotton only had shooting guard eligibility. That used to always piss me off because he used to handle the ball as much as anyone. Right. You could only get him in as a shooting guard and not a point guard. So yeah, I like the format now where it's guards and forwards, and maybe that 6-man option could be something they look into in the future. That would be cool as well.
And look, we did speak a little bit about fantasy sports a bit earlier. I think, Boydie, you were talking about dial-up internet and logging on in the morning to set your team. Robbie and I have been part of the same fantasy league now for nearly 20 years, right? Same league, and we play multiple comps, various different sports. What's your experience with other fantasy sports outside of playing NBL fantasy? I know you touched on it, Boydie, but Benny, maybe I'll throw over to you to start off with.
Yeah, look, I know Boydie's a commissioner of a few leagues, so I'll leave him to talk about that. But yeah, by all means, living in Melbourne, AFL fantasy in particular. And look, I did play Supercoach in our office leagues as well and things like that. So, but look, I really enjoyed the AFL fantasy podcast that was part of it, and the boys from Dream Team Talk. And actually, when we started off, being able to post articles on their website, I would say was the thing that got us our initial following. So always thankful to those guys in the AFL fantasy realm. But look, Banksy and I used to play an NBA stock exchange game. Banksy even owned a website dedicated to it. He was going to buy the platform from Roto at one point in time. Like, he's the fantasy head out of all of us. But that being said, Boydie and I are still in an NFL fantasy league, and I know you're a commissioner of a couple of others, or at least one other that I know of, Boydie.
Yeah, so we've got the AFL one, which is a stats-based one, the old Ultimate Footy, which has been taken over now as well.
Categories, wasn't it?
But, yeah, so that was scoring in categories. Like, I did play an NBA one like that, and I think you guys played an NBA one, which is categories, correct?
9 categories. 9 categories.
Yeah, so I've played an AFL one that I think it's about 12 years deep, I think we are now. Something along those lines. Benny did used to play, but then he gave it away. He needed more time to focus on his NBL fantasy.
Fair enough. So if you guys play 9
category
and
I played
leagues,
the NFL one too.
Like if you guys play like category leagues in the NBA, I'd really love to know like how far you guys. Like we really want to push for at least daily game day Supercoach to be available next year. Just makes sense. If your fantasy team, season long team is struggling, you still just put in a team. I might even watch this game just because I've got one, right? But sure. I really love the concept of a draft. The draft is a fantastic element of fantasy sports. You guys obviously both do them. You've got a long-running league. Are we going to get to that spot in the NBL? Could we do one now, or do we need expansion? I'd love to know your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, maybe I'll answer that one first, Woods. I'd love to see that, to be honest. I've done an English Premier League fantasy comp for years, and I find with a lot of these comps without the draft, all the teams just end up with the same players at the end of the season. I'm sure we'll find that a little bit in NBL. Maybe, I think NBL with the doubles and everything, it does make people change the teams more, but using that Premier League thing for an example, pretty much, you'll have 3/4 of the team, everyone will have the same, and it gets a little bit boring in a way like that. So I'd love to see the draft, who's going to get number 1 pick? Is it going to be Bryce Cotton that goes? Is it going to be JLA? Those sort of things like that.
So that would be
cool that only one player would be owned. True. So I'd like to see that option at least. Maybe they could play that as an expert type thing, but also play the current format. So what are your thoughts on that, Woods?
Yeah, I think we chatted about this offline, Benny. It's about the amount of players we have in the league. If you do say 10 teams, 8 players per team. Once you get to the 80th player, you're looking at who you're going to get as your center, right? You know what I mean? Like, you might get Dane Pinot now, who's basically, the kind of thing. You probably need a little bit more. You probably need 12 teams, 12 players a team. That gives you a pool of, my maths isn't too good, 144 players. That's probably in a place where we can go down that route, right, guys?
Yeah.
Look, one thing I've got to actually bring up here is, and Jacinta, a really good friend of ours, and the show, host of Shooting the Breeze podcast, she's always talked to me, Woody, man, we need to have a WNBL Supercoach, right? 100%. Because there's a WBBL Supercoach. We love supporting the WNBL. I was just watching it before I jumped on here, and to really get some, more, eyes on the league, I think that is something that I think we can probably go look at expanding into first, right? So what are your thoughts on that, guys? Yeah.
Well, I know that, I'm talking AFL again, before they officially made it a competition as part of their platform this year on the AFL fantasy perspective, I know that they have a prior winner who literally built a platform himself to play AFLW fantasy. I don't think we're going to have that someone to come in and do that, but look, it would be... We like to brag about the NBL as being one of the best leagues in the world. The WNBL is legit like the second best league in the world, is it not? Like, the quality is fantastic, and I got 2 daughters myself, so I would definitely be playing that. It's one of those things that you have just straight fantasy players out there, and they will then watch the game purely because they have a fantasy team and take interest. So it cannot hurt.
Yeah. Squin, I know you'll be listening to this, so get your contacts at Basketball Australia and talk to them, and I know the Basketball Blokes will be on board, right?
Hey Woods, remember I played the WNBA fantasy this year. I just jumped on that. We might need a host. A lot of interest from that.
There you go.
Yeah. There you go.
All right, guys, so thanks for jumping on this week. Obviously, a big part of you being able to have the time to jump on this week is because there was a fever break. And I've been waiting for your episode to come out, so it's going to come out next week, I presume, before the resumption of play, right?
Is it a majority rules, Boydie, that if we go opt for the Sunday deck session to record, I think that might be the option. Look, it's typically get an article out and do everything straight away on the Monday as soon as the game unlocks. But look, if we've got the weekend available to us, we'll probably record on the Sunday and it'll drop on the Monday for sure.
Right, so looking forward to that, guys. So normally we'd preview the round that is about to follow, but what I'm going to do is go back and look back on the round that just went and throw it to you guys and get your thoughts on a few things. So let's start off with the first game of round 8, which is Tasmania versus New Zealand. New Zealand winning 97-92, which you would say is a bit of an upset victory. Maybe I'll throw over to you, Boydie. From a fantasy impact point of view, I want you to talk to me a little bit about the impact that Magnay had and what implications is that with people owning someone like a Marcus Lee, right?
Yeah, well, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, and the reason why I wore the jersey today, Magnay had that huge game in this game. So I think, 20 points, 13 rebounds, a couple of blocks you mentioned as well. It just was all over it. He was everywhere, and it just looked like he was the Will Magnay that we have all sort of wished for over the last, I don't know, since he came back from his little stint in the NBA or whatever. 3 years, I think it is, something along those lines. So he was dominant, but everyone forgets, though, that Lamb was probably pretty dominant on the other side of the court as well. So I think he had 47 Supercoach points as well in that game. Off the top of my head, my computer's not working that flash while we're on here, unfortunately, so I can't get anything concrete up. But
still only small amount of minutes, right, for Magnay to do that. So what we want is Supercoach and like what you're talking about, how are they going to play Lee and Magnay together like he produced, but it was still in a very short amount of minutes. So we want to see those minutes going up, I think.
Yeah, and that's one big red flag we've always kind of said about that. Like if one's playing, the other's not. They're not going to be playing on the court at the same time. So it's a bit of a Supercoach wasteland there. You don't want to be taking the punt on. I think either one still at the moment. I mean, plenty of people are jumping on the Magnay bandwagon from what we hear, and I think at the moment he's one of the most traded in players for the week. So obviously everyone's loving it, and he is fairly cheap. So he's cheap-ish. I wouldn't say he's super cheap, but
he's good value.
One to watch.
Shame about Will McDowell-White fellas as well. Yep. Like I don't know, does that come out for 6 weeks? Has it?
Yep.
Something along those lines with the hand.
Look, I think we'll get into New Zealand a little bit later when I go to the second game of the round. We can unpack that a little bit further, Benny. Sure. I might move on to you, Robbie. Your Wildcats are back, brother. You know the Red Army's a bit quiet now, man. So give me some Doolittle love, bro. Give me some Doolittle love, man.
Well, firstly, I told you Doolittle was the keeper, right? I told you that, right? You can't prove otherwise. But no, I mean, look, I thought this game was a little bit ugly, to be honest. Wildcats did what they needed to do. I just like the spread. In terms if we're looking from a Supercoach perspective, we saw Ben Henschel actually get on for 1 minute. I don't think he got a stat though. But obviously Cotton put up some pretty big numbers. Loving what Hiram Harris is doing. He's one of those guys that's sort of filling up the stat sheet. Doesn't get a lot of shot attempts, but does all the dirty work and everything like that. So I think Cotton's probably the story though, isn't it? He's 25 points in this game. He's just been killing it the last couple of weeks. So yeah, not sure if this FIBA break's the best thing for the Wildcats, on this break, but maybe they'll get a little bit of rest into some of the guys and they'll come out firing and knock off your Kings next week.
That's going to be a good game, man. It's going to be a good game. All right, let's move on. Southeast Melbourne versus Adelaide, boys. Fans,
we're not talking about this, right? We're out.
Let's talk here, man. It seems like a few steps forward and then a few steps back, for SEM. Yeah. So
I don't know. We're a bit of a yo-yo. Like we're up and down. We're not sure what. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of it was just a bit of a yuck game. I mean, we were up by. Well, that's it. We were up by 18 points, I think it was, near the start of the third quarter, and ended up losing by. Well, we were down by double figures almost at one stage, I think, and sort of fought back a little bit. So just a bit yuck. I mean, Big Sauce Williams had some foul trouble. Creaky probably didn't have his best game. The two import guards probably didn't play that flash either. And Cummins was in a bit of foul trouble as well with that one, if I remember rightly. So it's kind of a bit of a yuck game. But I was going to say, Robbie was talking up his man Doolittle. I reckon he's got Mitch Creek to thank for that, because I think Doolittle was average until Mitch Creek was in the commentary for a Perth game, probably 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and was talking Doolittle up like played with him, played against him. Sorry, in the Puerto Rico league, not this season, just gone in our off season, the one before, I think it was. And he's like, this guy's like a 10 and 10 guy, can rebound, like one of the best rebounders for his size, blah blah blah. And then next minute, bloody, like put a rocket up Doolittle, and gladly because I've got him in my side. But he has been ripping it up, I guess, in the last couple of games, and he's played some big minutes too, where it was kind of looking like, maybe it wasn't the best signing in the world after the first couple of games, was it? So.
On that Southeast Melbourne Adelaide game, just a couple of real bizarro world things. It's the second game in a row that someone's tried to assault Towie Smith-Milner. We had Gary Brown punch him in the guts after Magnay went in the game before. So, yep. And Daniel Johnson. That was the weirdest thing I've ever... Like, I was happy with the ovation the 36ers fans gave him. That was good to see. And in the first half, Boydie's sending me a message. Look, I'm like, how we can stretch the floor. This is something different. And then, it obviously didn't pan out for us. But that was bizarro world stuff, seeing Daniel Johnson not playing for the 36ers.
Definitely. And a shout out to CJ Bruton and the Adelaide 36ers. After being much maligned at the start of the season, they have turned it around nicely here, and they're competitive. So shout out to them, right? All right, let's move on to this Cairns and Tasmania game. What I want to speak about a little bit is, I know you guys are big fans of 40. Cairns is my second team, a lot of people's second team, right? Mm-hmm. They're 2 Hail Marys away from being 6-4, but they're 4-6, Tyler Harvey jacking that one up, and then obviously McVeigh doing the same thing, right? So they're a bit unlucky. They're a strong team, well coached. They've got to be a bit unlucky to be where they are, I feel. What do you think?
I agree. Like, they get, obviously, players back, and then Bobby Clintman plays 8 minutes and the hip's not quite right, They just haven't had that run at it yet either. And interestingly enough, on those buzzer beaters, both shots were over Sam Wardenberg. So we put together a little video. I'm like, oh, poor Sam. And then someone posts a video from the NCAA tournament on this in the year where Loyola went to the Final Four, and in round 1, they won on a buzzer beater over Sam Wardenberg for playing for Miami as well. So poor Sam, he's had a rough go at it. He was not too happy about it. But look, I still they're my second favourite team as well. Look, I think that they are still a play-in contender for sure. But yeah, from a Supercoach perspective, they've got a great schedule, so we have to be looking at them for sure.
I mean, Sam Wardenberg's one guy I want to talk about. He's been really disappointing for me this season. After his great rookie year, he's just fallen in love with that three-point shot. He's not shooting it at a very great clip. What made him really good last year, and maybe Robbie I'll throw over to you, is his ability to put the ball on the floor and actually attack the rim and score from the paint, And we've seen a lot less of that this year, and that's really affected the Taipan's ability to take their game to the next level. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think you're right. He certainly hasn't, given what we were maybe expecting from him. Probably maybe some second-year blues, I'm not sure. And it has been a tough schedule for Cairns. I'm not sure why teams are probably putting their hand up to do these NBA pre-season games when it's like round 3 of the NBL. It just seems a strange thing to do. But I'm sure he'll find his way there, Woods. I think it's just the continuity with these guys as well, sort of playing together. They've had a lot of people in and out of the lineup. So hopefully he can find a bit more of that game from last year. Maybe, start off getting to the basket a bit, because he does have a good shot. He's just not really getting him to fall at the moment. But I think you're right. A couple of buzzer beaters away from having a lot better record. So a lot of games coming up for him. So hopefully they can turn it around.
All right. So Brisbane versus Perth, man. Over to you. Back to you, Perth. Back to you, Robbie. Perth, hard fought win, man. This wasn't a fun game to watch. It was very ugly, right? But they managed to get the W, right?
It was an ugly game. It felt like Perth just stole this one. I don't know what the time in front was for Brisbane, but it felt like a lot of the game there. I was pleased just to get out of there with that W after Brisbane knocked us off earlier in the season. So, it's great seeing all those green W's underneath the Wildcats. I'm enjoying that.
Yeah. And boys, Brisbane finding it difficult to execute down the stretch. We saw that against Sydney the week before, right? We found the same thing happening here against Perth. They're really close to being good. I think Shannon Scott's going to make a huge difference being that leader, right? But talk to me a little bit about Brisbane. Yeah.
Boydie, I know
this is the first game where they've looked a bit
Supercoach. Yep. But talk about it in a real life basketball perspective for Sovi. I think that's an issue.
Oh, look, but the last game in Supercoach, he was no good as well. I think 15 or something like that. So playing a bit of hero ball. I think this is the first game where obviously Brisbane have been beatable at home. I think before that they'd won every game, I think, at home this season. But they just probably got Perth at the wrong time, I guess. Perth are running hot at the moment, and they really, as you said, without Shannon Scott sort of running the floor there, which I think he's been real important to them. And him out for the extended period has really cost them a little bit. I think they've gone downhill, obviously, since he has been out. So they need him back as quickly as possible.
One positive was Chris Smith's game. Obviously can shoot the ball. In pre-season was doing it magnificently, and this is his best game of the season, I'd say, in the season proper. So hopefully when they get Scott back, they'll all be able to put it together and start going on another run.
Yeah, that jump shot is wet, man. Agree.
It's a nice looking shot, isn't it?
Chris Smith.
Yeah. For
sure. I know you'd like that and appreciate that, Robbie. From one ugly game to another ugly game, 69-65. I think we'll get to the Melbourne-Sydney game, but I think Melbourne might have put on as many points as New Zealand in the second half of the Melbourne-Sydney game. So let's talk. I want to go over to the Blokes, right? Having Coach Tatum come in and take over from our good friend Jacob Jackomas, being tough for JJ, but Justin Tatum comes in, puts his ideologies and thoughts on the rotations. What kind of impact has this got on fantasy, having a new coach coming in for Illawarra? And Supercoach, yeah. It
is kind of a disaster if I'm from a Supercoach. Obviously, new coach bounce, that's great, and I think it was the JJ podcast where Robbie had his ball jersey on a year ago as well. So very topical for me to wear this one as well. But he played all 12 guys. We saw Bawali get really good run. So what we want really in Supercoach is that shortened roster that the Wildcats have been going with of late. That's kind of what we want to see. Now, whether or not Tatum's given them all a run to start off with, and all right, you've got to earn your minutes from now on. Here's game one. Let's see how we go from there. Nothing's guaranteed. Everything's got to be proven, and then it might get wound back from there. It's something that we need to see. But they have the worst schedule from a Supercoach perspective anyway, so we don't really need to look at them too much, but that's my
until the last 3 or 4 rounds, which are all finals rounds, where they have the best schedule in the last 4 rounds. So you kind of have to keep one eye on the Hawks, because you're probably going to need 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 come finals time. Supercoach finals time down the track, at least, or even the finish of the season. So I think the main takeaway for the first game is just Froling's playing big minutes. The big 4 guys for them: Froling, Clark, J-Rob, and Harvey. Yep, sorry, lost his name. They all played significant minutes, and the rest was kind of like throw a blanket over them, and which is hard because as I mentioned, you might want to chuck one of their cheaper guys on the bench for that run of finals. The games near the end, where I think they've got 7 games in 4 weeks or something along those lines. So, it's a bit of an enigma at the moment. But as Benny said, hopefully it was just one game, and they go from there. I guess the worst one from it was Greeter that lost. He was playing big minutes, and he only played about 5 or 6, I think, off the top of my head. So he was probably the main loser. Obviously, everyone was hoping for Lockie Ulbrich to play a few more minutes. I think he played 12 or over 12, but so did Pete Link. So those two there, I don't think there's any sort of... there's not one over the other. I think they're both going to get minutes. And
Benny, quickly before we move on, New Zealand, yes, you mentioned William McDowell-White, injury, out for a while. I think him and Zylan Cheatham are not going to be back till the end of the year. So New Zealand really rely heavily on these guys, Lamb and the law firm, as Robbie likes to call him, Parker Jackson Cartwright. And there's pretty much nothing else after them. So from a basketball perspective, right, they need something more from the Finn Delaney's of the world, to contribute. And from a fantasy perspective, those two are obviously going to be bankers going forward, right?
Absolutely. Even if the schedule drops off, we'd like to follow the schedule, but particularly this week as trade targets, the law firm and the Lamb, great combination in New Zealand. So get on board. Yep,
cool. And finally, I don't really want to talk about this, Robbie. I'll throw over to you. Melbourne versus Sydney. I know you had a few choice words about Jalen Adams, so talk to me, man.
This might be controversial, Woods, and I'll probably have to eat my words if he ends up firing up, but overrated. Jalen Adams, overrated. That's all I got to say.
Yep. And Chris Goulding, guys, I mean, all this talk, MVP, is there some credence in that?
It changes every week. It was Jalen, and then Alan Williams, then JLA, then Chris Goulding, and look, I mean, if you had to stop it today, based on the record, JLA hasn't played enough games for United, it would be probably CG43 that would get the prize. But how that pans out later on in the season, I mean, it's just, as a South East Melbourne fan, it's hard to say because he always tortures us, but and he's been doing it for years, and he flops, and he's really frustrating to watch as a non-United supporter. But you have to give him credit, fellas. Surely, like I was watching Rose Gold, and when you see him in the Boomers colours, I'm like, oh, he might be actually a bit likeable. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to say, but he's killing it right now.
Yeah, I think he's had a couple of down games as well, though. So I would say no at this stage myself. But I think, I mean, if the season stopped today, he'd be probably up there. But I think he's a bit one-dimensional myself.
100%. I was going to say that, you know. Yeah.
So he doesn't. I'm not sure. He's probably lucky he plays on the best, if not second best, defensive team in the league this year. Because they all help each other, and it helps when you've got Daly or Jay Ely to throw at the best backcourt player on the other team every week as well. You know, so I think he's doing pretty well, and he's played some games. I'm not sure if he's put it all together, but then again, I don't know who there's. Standouts wise, I'm not sure there's anyone really odds on. So he might for stop now. I reckon Cotton's bobbling away though. I think he's turned the tide, and I think we've got. And I'm peeved because I nearly used the boost in Supercoach to bring him in round before this one. And I didn't, and I kept Miller, who obviously was out with that injury, and so it's put me a ton. I've lost about 150 ranking positions in the 2 weeks, unfortunately. But if I had Cotton for both those weeks, I probably would have been making ground. So,
and just quickly before we move on, Coach Vickerman really outcoached Coach Mahmood Abdul Fateh, I thought, right? You know, in that second half. He must have spoken to the team at halftime and come out. They came out with energy. We didn't call. I mean, Sydney. When I say we didn't take timeouts at opportune times to stop the momentum, right?
Interesting you say that halftime speech because I'm told that Daly actually took the halftime speech in the Melbourne change rooms, not very happy Daly apparently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a coach on the floor, right? You know, a coach is part of that locker room. So whatever happened there, I think Sydney needs to look at it because this likely final series, I'm hoping anyway.
Hey, right, Woods, are you angry about that overrated comment, Woods, or what? You're okay with me saying that, or?
Look, this is what this guy said to me. Texted me, said Doolittle is the worst import in the league, right?
I was in a filthy mood that night. Yeah.
All right, and I didn't say anything at the time. All right. But now I'm like, you know, remember what you said, you know? So I'm just going to just keep quiet now and wait for him, the former MVP, to prove you wrong. So just you wait, man. He's going to step up. He's going to step up.
Your guys' your guys' DMs or group chats or whatever is rowdy as ours does get at certain times as well. I see, so that's good to hear. Jay Adams, with Robbie's bringing him up. I feel like I just watch him every week still because I know, you know, Sydney have got a pretty good schedule coming up, and I've been watching him. He just feels like he's like in first gear. He's not
cruise
even
control.
Really
Cruise control.
Shit, to be honest, you're not allowed to say that on your podcast.
You can.
You can beat me out. Yeah, he kind of like just looks like he's cruising. And is that because he's like so bloody fast that when he's just walking, he looks like he's
that's
running.
That's his demeanor, right? You know. And
yeah, it is.
Almost in first gear. And when he wants to put it on, he can. And we've seen him do that. We saw that in the fourth quarter of that Brisbane game when we needed him to step up.
Yeah.
He did that. So I think let's just wait and see. Liam said it many times that Import that has a great season and comes back for the second season sometimes has, takes it a bit easy, right? So let's just see how it plays out. Anyway, guys, I want to move on. I want to talk some NBA, right? We've got 3 NBA teams in focus here. I'm going to start off with some Hawks talk, right? Robbie, we lost to Boydie's Pacers today. No surprise, we're playing just under 500 ball at 6-7. So I want to just read you a little quote from the Bleacher Report from Greg Swartz, and I want you to comment on it. All right, Robbie?
Yeah.
Following a season in which they went 41-41 overall, the Hawks have begun the 23-24 campaign a perfect even 6-6 as well. Well, 6-7 now. There's enough of a sample size here to know Atlanta should once again fall into the play-in tournament in the East, as a roster of Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, and some high-quality role players can only carry the Hawks so far. If there was ever a team in need of a third star, this is it. Even after trading for Murray, the Hawks can still part ways with multiple first-round picks and have some intriguing young talent to offer as well. This could be a potential home for a player like Karl Anthony Towns, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, or Jeremy Grant at the deadline. Speak on it, man.
Well, I'd be happy getting the big cat because he's one of my favourite players. Look, I'm still keeping the faith. I'm an optimistic Hawks fan. They've had a few. Started off bad, then they went on a run. They're a little bit ordinary at the moment. I do like the depth they've got. Sometimes it can be to their detriment, though, when they're possibly playing too many players. Loving what Bogdan Bogdanovic is doing this year. He's having an absolutely amazing season. Probably expecting a little bit more from Onyeka Okongwu. I think he's someone that can maybe step up, and DeAndre Hunter. But I'm keeping the faith. I'm not a big fan of OG Anunoby or Jeremy Grant, if I'm being honest. I wouldn't really want to give up anything for that. Pascal Siakam's an intriguing one. I know the Hawks have reportedly offered, I think, maybe DeAndre Hunter, a first-rounder, and maybe AJ Griffin, so some sort of package like that. But again, he's a free agent at the end of the year, so you do want to give up 3 key pieces for someone that might walk out there. But I'm keeping the faith. Hopefully they're, we're going to be obviously seeing them next year. Hopefully they're in some serious playoff contention more than playing contention. But yeah, I'm still confident.
Yeah, likewise, man. Likewise. Boydie, let's move on to your Pacers. 8-5, you beat us today. What was the score, Robbie? 155 to something? 147 or something?
About 200 to 190 or something.
Crazy game. Crazy game.
150 plus again.
Wow. 2000 to 2009. Yeah.
I love the roster they put together this year. One guy I want to highlight is Aaron Nesmith and the way he's developed his game. What do you think of what he's brought to the table?
Yeah, well, there's a bit of a question mark around him about how he fits, and with Buddy Hield in there and Mathurin, they want to play more, and obviously alongside Halliburton as well, how that was all going to work. There's too many sort of backcourt guys, but I think they've kind of got the mix kind of right at the moment. I haven't been able to watch too many games, but I keep my eye on the scores as best I can. But he's obviously talented, the side of me kind of thinks, Buddy's 35 or whatever he is now, but he's not that old, but it feels like it in our team because he's much older than most of them. I'd like to see him get all the Buddy's minutes almost, but Buddy's still our 4th top scorer at the moment, average scorer, so I think he has to stay there. Little bit of worry about the Pacers is just there appears to be a lack of defense. Every game seems to be 130 points plus for both teams. And it's all good to be an offensive team and ball out. They're exciting games when it's high scoring, but defense wins championships, as they say. But we're a very young side, and we're just developing and getting that chemistry. One person I'm really happy with a little bit of a turnaround is Miles Turner. So obviously, countless seasons of maybe not playing to potential to a degree, and also his name is always dragged through the trade rumours, and it always irks me because I really like him, and I don't think players like him grow on trees. What is he, 6'10", shoots a 3 pretty well.
Block shots,
shot blocker. Can play. I don't know why you would trade him. I know the Lakers were sniffing around last year, and they're one of those teams that gives me it's pardon me, but it's good to see him turn around. What's he averaging? 17 and 7 rebounds or something along those lines. So a good little partner to run along with Halliburton, I reckon.
Yeah, for sure. Halliburton's leadership's been terrific. Just before we move on to Benny, Robbie, I know you guys met Emily, Robbie's daughter, before we started recording. Emily's favourite player is Buddy Hield. Are you going to have to buy a new jersey for Emily very soon? Is he going to be moved before the trade deadline?
One thing I was thinking is he shouldn't have changed his number, but he was really good today. That was probably his best game of the season. He hit 2 crucial threes in the last probably minute, 20 seconds there that really gave him the win there. But look, I did promise her I'll get her a new jersey if they trade him. She keeps on asking if the Hawks are going to try and trade for him, but not sure if they've got room for him and Trey maybe in a backcourt there. But yeah, I like the way he turned around today, but I still wish he kept that 24, which is the number I love so much.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie. And Benny, let's talk about your Rockets really quickly, right? 6-6. Actually, we have the worst record out of these 3 teams, by the way, Robbie. So they have been really impressive at home, but can't seem to win on the road. Benny, what kind of impact is Coach Udoka having on this roster?
Look, quickly, I wanted to come on this podcast for ages. I just had to wait for my team to be somewhat respectable before we could do it, And it would have been good to be on last week when we were in some good form. But look, obviously. Great impact. He's like a grown up in the room. You see Jalen Green sit the whole fourth quarter today, just because the mix on the court was really good. Obviously, look, it's good to have that Australian connection as well. It's been fun to watch. Like, I know you mentioned that Atlanta's depth's really good. The one person who's not enjoying that, of course, Paddy, and Jock's suffering similar for us. But awesome to see Jay Tate back, playing really well. And you got to think of where we've come from, right? Yes, we've lost a few away games in a row, but for Houston to be competitive in 3 away games in a row is progress, right? Yeah. So it'll, in time, I think we can still, get. That's actually not as bad as you would think on a 3-game skid. So long as they can jag one of these on the road trip, I think that'll be a win.
Yeah, look, that Sydney Kings connection with Jay Tate, awesome, man. Always great to see him doing well. Look, I want to talk about one guy, right? Alperen Sengun, the Big Turk. He's averaging 21 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists a game. I knew he had talent, but these numbers are just ridiculous. Is he putting up a potential all-star case here?
Look, we'd want our record to still be good. Look, he's defensively a lot better this year, and I don't know how much is that's himself or the coaching or the scheme, but I mean that stands at the moment as the biggest mistake Sam Presti's made, I think, in recent times, is in letting us get Alperen Sengun. So, look, I'm very biased. Like, you see what he did in Europe before getting drafted, and he was, I think, my favourite prospect out of the prospects that we've had over the last few years. And yeah, he's just showing that now with some other, like Van Vliet, who can actually facilitate and play proper basketball in a scheme. And we're not getting fast breaks against us and different things like that, so he can actually defensively do something, because that's not his strength as a general rule. But he's fun to watch, man. Baby Jokic, it's good stuff. Yeah,
definitely. I like the roster they put together this year. Robbie and me was speaking about it earlier. I think they've made some good moves, having an adult like we spoke, Fred Van Vliet, there, to come and offer that experience in the locker room has been great. So let's just see how it plays out. All our 3 teams are just floating above water here. All right, guys, sorry about that. My dog Skittles is biting my toes, so if she just came up on screen, I was just trying to get her out of it. Okay, so we are going to now do what is my favorite section of the show, right? Classic packs, all right? And I always tell Robbie when we have guests on, don't show off, give the boys a chance to guess my clues. We know you're the man, right? Okay.
I got no chance.
So, he's in bad form lately, though, right, Robbie?
I like this year. I do like this this vintage you've chosen here, man. I think I've got quite a few Reggie Miller cards from 94, 95, I reckon. So
the 94, 95 hoops by Skybox, right?
So I should like 94 and 95 as a Rockets fan, but I think I was still Orlando at that time. So, they were 2 great years for the Rockets. Yeah. So I can claim him now, but I didn't get to enjoy him.
All right, awesome. So basically, I'll open it. I'll give a few clues, and you just chime in, guys, if you know who the player is, right? And this is a brand new pack. Not open. So this pack has been in here for like 20 years, right? Before it's been opened. All right.
Actually, closer to 30, but yeah.
Kansas City's finest. Kansas University's finest, right? I love this guy. One of my favorite players. Power forward. Was involved in a trade to the Atlanta Hawks.
I'm not even going to say his name.
Robbie very unhappy. All right. Number 15.
Boo.
From Kansas. Danny Manning.
That's just ruined the vibe now.
Right.
Now I'm in a bad mood. Can't stand that guy.
All right, this is a question card. All right.
We can see the bottom of the card, man.
It's just a Bullets card, man.
Come on, man.
Oh,
You're nearly 40 now.
I like it. That's
I
nice.
remember this set, actually.
Yeah, I can't remember either. What is this set?
So cool that people send these into you, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Sydney Seekings.
Yeah,
I think
cool.
he sent this
I
one
like
in,
it.
right? All right, cool. We've got... what is this? All right. Forward from the Philadelphia 76ers. Number 40. And then on the back, it's got another player. Number 40. Oh, no. He was previously at the Bullets. Number 40. Part of that 93-94 NBA draft, guys. I think Calvert Chaney. Yes.
Oh, nice.
The encyclopedia.
Okay. This guy was a spark plug off the bench for the Golden State Warriors. Number 22. I think he played for Milwaukee as well. Very similar name to Boston Celtics legend. Same surname as Boston Celtics legend I'm talking about. Played for Milwaukee, I think. Number 22 guard.
Don't wait for me to try and answer, man.
Ricky Pierce.
Ricky Pierce. Yeah,
Yes.
the veteran. Jeez, he played for a few teams.
All right, leave this one. Leave this one for Boydie. Boydie, you mentioned Ron Artest in the same breath as this man, who is an eccentric Carmen Electra. I'll throw that name
Dennis
out there.
Rodman.
We've actually got
Nice
one worth of
colourful
money.
hair.
Have
That's
we?
good. That's a good card. Ooh, I like that one. That's nice. I like that. It's gold.
Spurs, Rodman.
What is that, an insert?
He's probably had his hair that colour of gold.
It's an insert, yeah. It's the gold. I think it's just the late blue.
I can't believe we got a card of a player's name we mentioned earlier. That's pretty freaky.
Yeah, it's just a. Yes, I've never seen this pack before. These packs before. All right. Oh man. Okay. Same surname as the starting point guard for the Charlotte Hornets right now. Right. He's a forward center rookie from the Golden State Warriors. Okay. The starting point guard. Now the starting off guard. Let's just say who plays alongside LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball. Right. He's a combo guard. Never seen a shot he doesn't like. His surname is?
Rozio.
Yep. So this guy's got the same surname from the Golden State Warriors.
Terry.
Clifford Rozier.
Oh, jeez. You know they're not great when there's a picture without their jersey on. That's just a warm-up.
I mean, the warm-ups.
Okay, number 35 from the Los Angeles Clippers. I think he was on this team with Tony Mazenberg and those guys. Your brother would know this guy.
Not Lloyd Vaught.
Lloyd Vaught.
Straight out of Michigan.
Yep.
What?
All right.
Skittles is back.
Skittles, yes, I
Yep.
know that one.
Yeah, she's okay. The Rifleman, one of the great three-point shooters of all
Pacers
time.
legend. Yeah. I've shown his jersey on a show, haven't I?
Is his San Antonio Spurs card?
Chuck.
Person.
Big fan of Chuck Person. Yeah,
Person.
he was great.
All right. Okay, guys, this one's for you. The first overall pick in the 94-95 NBA draft, known as Big Dog. That is Glenn Robinson. That is Glenn Robinson. Skittles? Glenn Robinson.
The second? Maybe Glenn Robinson the second? I think it is.
Possibly, yeah.
Okay, okay. Phoenix rookie. I don't know much about this guy. He's a guard, Robbie, from the Suns.
What number?
Number 8. He's got the same name as a Washington Wizards center who threw the ball up in the air like an idiot and then who got the catch. I think it was Toronto Raptors players caught that ball and shot the three. Who was that? Do you remember that incident?
That was Mo Peterson, wasn't it?
Mo Peterson shot the three, but who was the idiot from the Washington team who threw the ball in the air thinking the game was over? We're talking about Michael Ruffin, and this is Trevor Ruffin.
Oh, yep. Trevor Ruffin, yeah, jeez.
It's been a bad pack, man.
It's not a lot of big names so far. Jeez, and Danny Manning to start it off.
I know that's Houston Rockets. That's a Houston Rockets question card.
It's before my time. As I said, I can't claim
That's a terrible logo, by the way, wasn't it?
It doesn't have the answer, but it says, which Rocket set a rookie for the rookie record for 3-point field goals in a season?
Matt Bullard. Or Matt Maloney.
I don't know, man. I've got to get serious to find the answer.
Oh, really?
Terrible pack, guys. Terrible pack. Really bad pack. Sorry, guys.
Hey,
sorry
Boydie,
about that.
thanks for getting one to, at least give us some respect.
That's it. Terrible pack. Terrible pack. Sorry, guys. I was hoping for better. All right, cool. So it's been really great, guys. Thanks for chopping it up with us. Had a lot of fun. Robbie, maybe I'll throw over to you. Do your thing.
Sounds good, mate. Well, that was a bit of a terrible pack, Woods, but it was good to see a new type of cards. Anyway, we haven't done those ones. So, just wanted to really thank everyone for tuning in. Please make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We can be followed on Twitter /X at Throwbacks Hoops. On Instagram, we're throwback.hoops. Of course, our email address, throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you wanted to pledge your support to us on Patreon, we'd really appreciate a couple of dollars a month. Would really help us with the production and editing and all the expenses that are associated with this show. But I'll throw it back to you, Woods.
Blokes, why don't you sort of let the audience know a little bit about where they can follow you, all that jazz.
That's your job.
You want ours as well? We're at bball_blokes on Twitter, or X, sorry. Basketball Blokes on Facebook, or www.basketballblokes.com. And that's it.
All right. Any final thoughts, guys?
Thanks for having us, guys. It's been really good. Been really good to finally get on here and talk to different people. Otherwise, I still had to talk to Benny today, so it's not that great. But it was good to talk to some others.
Vouch for that. Great not to have to sit next to Boydie for a podcast for a change. So appreciate you having on, and hopefully we can do it again.
Robbie?
No, it was great fun, lads. Enjoy the NBL break this week. It's going to be strange, isn't it? It's going to be strange sitting down and not having all the games to watch. Maybe watch a little bit more NBA or catch up on some Netflix or something. But really appreciate having you on, guys, and getting to meet you for the first time. I know Woody's had the pleasure already, but hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Yep, means a lot, guys. And Banksy, if you're listening, man, shout out to you. We're going to have you on next season. So from Robbie and I and the whole Throwback Hoops family, peace out till next week.